everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you are here today because today I'm going to be talking about Nevermore-athon Team Dove's recommendations. If you haven't heard about this readathon, it is a 1 month long readathon taking place in entire month of April, hosted by Denise from Adventures in Enchanted Forest. The link will be down below to her channel, to the announcement of the readathon, to the Discord channel where you can come and join us and chat with other teammates and other members of the Nevermore-athon society, where you can find all the information you could possibly need. This readathon is inspired or based on Netflix show Wednesday. There are 7 teams. So everybody will be split into 7 teams. The teams are Furs, Fangs, Scales, Stoners, Nightshades, Doves, and Ravens. And each of these teams have their own captain, and I am captain of the Doves. Doves are people with visions, but positive visions. That's gonna be the focus of our reading this month. Every team has their own bingo board, and this is the bingo board with prompts for Dove's team. And so I want to go through the prompts and give you some recommendations on what you could read. These are recommendations usually of the books that I have read. Maybe I will just throw here and there some books that I haven't read but I know would fit these prompts. And yeah, hopefully you will find some books here if you are struggling with any of the prompts. So let's just jump right into it. So the first prompt on the board is book with psychic abilities, and this was quite tricky for me to find books that fit that. However, eventually I found a couple. So here are some ideas and some books that would fit psychic abilities prompt. First one we could talk about is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, because some of the people in this book have psychic abilities. Just simple as that. This book also fits other prompts that we'll talk about later. And this goes for any book in the series, really. All the books in the Twilight series have psychic abilities, so that fits great. Another book could be Carrie by Stephen King, where we know Carrie has some telekinetic abilities, which I would count as this could be a psychic ability. Then we have, for example, Game of Thrones, if you are into a longer fantasy series. I'm not sure, I actually haven't read the books, but from the show, I can tell that there are some psychic abilities, but I'm not sure they are in the first book, for example. So there will be later on. There are maybe a couple characters that have some kind of psychic abilities, so that could be potentially an option. Another one that maybe could be stretching it a little bit, but I think it would still fit, is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune, where there are a couple characters that can see dead people, and which is not necessarily a psychic ability. It is not a common person, normal person ability, so I would maybe stretch it and say that that could also work. And then definitely another option would be Fort Wolf by Hannah Witten. Has some kind of psychic abilities and visions, which again would fit another prompt on the board. Going to the second prompt on the board, we have book with light cover, and here you could really go for anything. White cover, yellow cover, any kind of like bright colors would count as light cover. So you could go, for example, Gallant has white cover by V.E. Schwab. We have Book of Night. There are a couple editions that have white covers. We have, for example, Twilight series. There is an edition that is white instead of black. You could count that. We have also, for example, if you're into romance, I would say The Book Lovers have a light cover. People We Meet on Vacation, Beach Read, all these books by Emily Henry are light covers. All these would count. And then, for example, Horror Store I found, which is a horror story by Grady Hendrix, light cover. So many options. If you're into nonfiction, memoirs, I'm Glad My Mom Died, definitely a light cover. Next we have a wholesome book, and this is a little bit maybe personal, but it's also like you don't often know if the book is wholesome or not until you read it. So there are just some books that are widely known to be kind of wholesome and just a warm hug. And so I want to list some of those. For example, for me, this kind of a book was The Humans by Matt Haig. I absolutely adored this book. I think it is very wholesome, and it shows a lot how people can grow. We have also The Book Lovers. I would count as a wholesome story if you like romance. For romance, I also love, I read only one book by this author, but I absolutely adored the way this book was written. It was Jessica Redland's book, Starry Skies Over the Chocolate Pot Cafe. This one is more of a Christmassy read. However, I believe any of her books would feel as a wholesome books. Also, we could count A Psalm for the Wild Build, so the Monk and Robot series, definitely wholesome book. Or then you have Legends and Lattes, which is fantasy, the same as Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches could be counted as wholesome. Also with Under the Whispering Door. So there are a couple suggestions. Next we have a book with sisterhood, which is a little bit trickier, but here I think we could count any book with witches. So if you go Nature of Witches, or Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, or The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, there is definitely some kind of sisterhood there as well. If you want to go directly like sisters, The Vanishing Half talks about the relationship between sisters. I think those are what I can think about at the moment. Next we have Positive Predictions, so a 5-star prediction. So this is a book that you expect you will love and you will give 5 stars. This is very personal, so it is completely up to you. I have a certain books that I would expect to give 5 stars, can be completely different from yours, so I don't feel comfortable giving recommendations on this. For me, there would be, for example, memoirs. I often give 5 stars to, and yeah, that's basically the only books that I can say comfortably that I expect this to get a 5-star from me, but that can be completely different for you. So just pick a book you think you will love and that will count. Next we have Read a Well-Liked Book. So here you can really stretch it as wide as you want. It can be well-liked book on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. If you saw people talking about this book, how amazing it is, it counts. If the book won Goodreads Choice Awards, I would say it's a well-liked book. This kind of like, if it's a popular book, I would say it's a well-liked book, go for it. Next we have Book with Love. This doesn't necessarily have to be a romance per se. This can be any kind of love. So it can be love between mother and daughter, it can be love between friends, love between a person and their pet, it can be any kind of love. So here we could have Electra, if you like Greek mythology retellings, or Ariadne is also about love. We have other Greek mythology retellings that are very famous and about love. There's so many books. Basically any book you can pick would have some kind of love in it, I'm sure. I was thinking one recommendation could be Will by Will Smith. It's his memoir. It's one of the best memoirs I ever read, and it's not necessarily about love itself, but there is a lot of talk about love and about his relationship with his family, with his siblings, with his parents, and then with his wives and girlfriends, and just also love for life itself. And yeah, it's just very fascinating memoir. But here you could go for anything really, any romance book or anything. Next prompt we have Book with Visions. This I feel is more complicated than the psychic abilities, because psychic abilities I feel would include visions as well. So visions is a bit more specific, but for this again, Twilight series would absolutely count. There are a couple characters that have visions. We have visions in Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. Adore the book. There are some visions. It's not the main plot of the story, even though it does play a role in the plot. Again, Game of Thrones could count for this, some later books probably. We have Electra has visions, well, not Electra herself, but the book. There are visions in the book. Next prompt we have mother-daughter bond in a book. And I feel this is a bit of a tricky one, because I don't think there are that many people writing about this. It can be quite a touchy subject. But I found a couple that I could recommend, or I could say that there are some kind of mother-daughter bond. So first of all, the one I will be reading is Crying in H Mart, where there definitely is discussed relationship between daughter and mother. We have Burnt Sugar, which is which talks about a daughter taking care of her sick mother who used to abuse her. So it's very interesting story. I haven't read this one, but it is on my TBR. Not for this month, but in general. We have I'm Glad My Mom Died, which is a memoir, obviously, daughter-mother relationship and how damaging it can be sometimes. And then again, Electra, I think a big plot point is also relationship between daughter and mother. So those all would work. Next we have Book with Ancestors. This one is very tricky because I don't know how many books there are with ancestors. But for example, I think again Twilight series would work because especially in the second one, especially the New Moon book, has ancestors in it. Or talks about ancestors and the history of Native American tribe. So that would definitely count. We have also For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, which is YA fantasy, and there is also again a big plot point is basically ancestors dealing with the particular forest and the magic, so that would fit. Game of Thrones talks a lot about ancestors as well, I think even in the first book, so if you would like that. We have also Babel, that would count for that, I'm sure, as well. I don't know, this one is kind of a tricky prompt, so these are some of the recommendations that I have for that. Next we have Read a Book by Candlelight. This can be any book of your choosing, no recommendation it is, just choose any book and read it by a candlelight. Doesn't necessarily need to be only candlelight, it can be a big light and then a candlelight next to you, but yeah, any book. Next up we have Favorite Author. Again, no recommendations here because my favorite author doesn't necessarily need to be your favorite author, so just if you have an author that you generally like their books, then pick another book from their backlist, or if you just liked one book by this person and you think like you might enjoy another one, just go for that. Really kind of like doesn't have to be like your favorite author, because sometimes it's hard to pick your favorite author. I know I have that problem, so yeah. Next prompt is arc. So read an arc. If you have any arcs, read that. If you don't get any arcs, there is one way you can get arc very easily. You can get it, you can just register on NetGalley, and there are books and audiobooks that you can immediately download. You don't need to like get permission or anything. You just need to register your account and then just read any book that you see there, and that would count as arc. If you would need help with that, if you want, definitely let me know, I can help you. Otherwise, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can just read a new release, so the latest release, or late book, like a latest purchase. Just pick something. Something recent. Next we have book set in the future, and for this would work, for example, the Monk and Robot series. So this one I feel like it is set in the future. It's not outright said, but I believe you could assume that. Another one would be The Psychology of Time Travel, for example, is set in future. It is also set in the past, but they travel. It is a book about time travel, so you do have some chapters from the future, some chapters from the past, and I really adore this book actually. And then another one that I absolutely love the book. I'm not sure it would count properly for book set in the future, but I think when it was written, it was set in the future. Not anymore. It is 1984 by George Orwell. This is a very well-known classic book, and when I read it, I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and when it was written like sometimes 1930s, 1940s, something like that. So it was definitely set in the future then. So stretching the prompt a little bit there. For the next prompt, The Gentle Book, You could read, again, I feel like romance usually would be a gentle book unless there are some really hard topics in it. You could, there is, for example, The House in the Cerulean Sea is definitely a gentle book. For example, Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman, I would definitely count those as gentle books. They are though graphic novels, so maybe if it's not your cup of tea, then don't worry, but they are quite enjoyable. I don't usually tend to read graphic novels, but Heartstopper was quite enjoyable. But yeah, there are many gentle books that you could pick. Many middle grades could be counted as gentle books. Yes, I will read for this Twilight because I feel like they are gentle books, especially the first one where there is not that much violence happening, so I like that one. But yeah. And then next one is adult main character. I think this is almost any adult book because most of the adult books have adult main character. So just an example would be Colin Hoover, It Ends With Us, definitely adult character. So many romances, adult romances will have adult characters. Many adult horrors will have adult characters. So for example, The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher, definitely adult main character. And for example, The Book Eaters as well, if you want a different kind of horror, definitely adult character in The Book Eaters, main character. If it comes to fantasy, The House in the Cerulean Sea definitely has an adult main character, as well as Under the Whispering Door. If we talk about Her Majesty's Royal Coven, also main character is adult, as well as Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And yeah, there are lots of adult books have adult main characters, so there you can also pretty easily pick adult book and that will fit the prompt. And that's all the prompts for Team Doves. So I hope you found some useful recommendations there, or if not, maybe it gave you idea for another book, similar book possibly. I don't know. I hope this was somewhat helpful. If you have any further questions or need any further recommendations, please let me know. I think I have a couple more for each of these prompts. I just didn't want to make this video extremely long. So yeah, talk to me down in the comments. Let me know if you'll be joining the readathon and what team. And yeah, let's talk all things books and readathons. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!